I had just transmigrated into the body of the Dowager Lady of Qingyuan Marquis Manor when I witnessed General Lu Xiao raising his riding whip to strike my frail, helpless concubine-born daughter. Kneeling on the ground, she looked exactly like my sister from modern times, the one who died from domestic violence. The moment that whip began to fall, I grabbed my teacup and hurled it at him. Mother-in-law, I am merely enforcing household discipline. Please do not interfere, Lu Xiao said, looking down at me with condescension. I rolled up my cumbersome sleeves, revealing the muscle definition earned from years of slaughtering pigs in the countryside. What a coincidence! I spent my early years butchering pigs and cattle back home. I am particularly skilled at dealing with beasts. Just yesterday, I was Li Guixiang, commanding workers at a rural pig farm to take down a 300-pound boar. I woke up today as the Dowager Lady of Qingyuan Marquis Manor. Before I could even get my bearings, I stumbled into this nightmare. In the center of the courtyard knelt a thin figure on the stone pavement. Her dress was torn in several places by the whip, dark red blood seeping through. She kept her head down, her frail shoulders trembling violently each time the whip struck, biting her lips so hard her face had gone white. That profile, that helpless posture, it made my heart clench. My sister who was beaten to death by her drunken husband, found without a single unmarked inch of flesh. She had knelt and begged for mercy, just like this. Rage shot straight to my head as I turned my gaze toward the man wielding the whip, tall and imposing in his dark brocade robes, the very picture of respectability. General Lu Xiao of the Cavalry Corps, husband to my predecessor's concubine-born daughter, Su Qingyuan, the bloody male led from that abusive romance novel I'd stayed up all night reading, the bastard who tortured the female lead body and soul before they somehow achieved their happy ending. Screw that happy ending. Watching that riding whip arc towards Su Qingyuan again, I snatched up the teacup beside me and hurled it at Lu Xiao. Porcelain shards and scalding tea splattered across him, halting his motion. The servants froze in shock. Lu Xiao paused, looking toward me with that superior air. Mother-in-law, I am merely enforcing household discipline on my unworthy wife. Given your advanced age, perhaps you should rest rather than interfere. In the original's memories, the previous occupant was a timid woman who never managed household affairs, terrified of this powerful general's son-in-law, and never daring to cross him. Unfortunately for him, there was a new tenant now, Li Guixiang, the village's top pig slaughterer, who'd never lost a fight in town. Why would I fear this creature who found his validation by abusing women? I let out a cold laugh, completely ignoring his pompous speech. This elaborate dowager lady getup was such a nuisance, all these flowing silk sleeves. I rolled them up roughly and marched toward him. Fortunately, the original body had also come from rural pig slaughtering stock, and my decades of butcher strength had apparently traveled with my soul. I walked right up to Lu Xiao, who towered over me by more than a head, his shadow falling across me. I planted my hands on my hips and met his contemptuous gaze head-on. What a coincidence! I spent years slaughtering pigs and cattle back home, skinning, gutting, bleeding, deboning. I'm particularly skilled at dealing with beasts. My gaze swept over him, as if appraising livestock for slaughter. Lu Xiao's expression darkened. Mother-in-law, do you know who you're addressing? Of course I do, the illustrious cavalry general, throwing his weight around by beating his wife. Quite the achievement. I stepped around him to reach Su Qingyuan. The poor girl was pale with terror, tears streaming down her face, lips trembling as she tried to speak but no sound emerged. Those eyes were exactly like my poor deceased sister's. I bent down and scooped her up. She was so light, weighing less than half a side of pork I'd normally carry. She gasped and instinctively wrapped her arms around my neck. Don't be afraid, Mother's here. With that, I turned and strode toward my courtyard. Stop! Lu Xiao barked, starting forward before halting abruptly. I looked back. Does General Lu intend to discipline his mother in law as well? Come on then, bring it. I tilted my neck, exposing it. Give it the same effort you put into beating your wife, and let all of the capital see how the cavalry general whips his mother in law in her own manner. Lu Xiao's chest heaved with rage. If looks could kill, I'd have been sliced to ribbons. But that hand gripping the whip never rose. The current dynasty valued filial piety above all. No matter how powerful Lu Xiao was, he wouldn't dare strike his mother-in-law publicly. Such scandal would give the imperial censors enough ammunition to impeach him into oblivion. I snorted derisively and strode away with Su Qingyuan. Back in my chambers, I carefully placed Su Qingyuan on the soft couch and ordered without looking back. Hot water, clean soft cloth, and the finest wound salve. The servants were still reeling from seeing the dowager lady physically carry the young mistress while threatening the general, their reaction sluggish. I shot them a sharp look. Gone deaf? Everyone scrambled. Yes, yes, dowager lady. Sitting beside the couch, I examined Su Qingyuan's injuries carefully, crisscrossing whip marks, skin split open, blood flowing freely. Just looking at them hurt. Damn that Lu Xiao, the bastard really went all out. Mother, today you were... Su Qingyuan began tentatively, her voice barely above a whisper like a kitten's mew. She probably wondered, how did you become a completely different person today? The original had never shown such care for this concubine-born daughter, maintaining polite distance at best. Protection like today's was unprecedented. I took the warm water a maid brought, dampening soft cloth to gently clean her wounds. Never mind how I was before. From now on, anyone who dares touch a hair on your head, I'll chop off their claws. Su Qingyuan stared at me in wonder, tears flowing again. She softly acknowledged and leaned her head against my arm, tentative and testing, just like my little sister used to do when she came home upset. My nose stung, and I made my movements even gentler. Halfway through applying medicine, commotion erupted outside. General, the dowager lady has ordered you cannot enter, get out of my way. The door burst open as Lu Xiao stormed in. He changed from his tea-stained outer robe, his expression even darker than before. Eyes like knives as he first swept over Su Qingyuan on the couch, then fixed on me. Mother-in-law, wasn't today's display rather presumptuous? Qingyuan is my wife. When she errs as her husband, disciplining her is perfectly justified. Even if you dote on your daughter, you shouldn't indulge her so, much less speak so inappropriately. I carefully adjusted Su Qingyuan's clothing to cover her wounds before standing to face him with a cold smile. General Lu's idea of discipline is beating someone nearly to death? What heinous crime did she commit to deserve your riding whip? Lu Xiao's eyes turned icy. She was jealous and intolerant, defying me. As the primary wife, she lacks any magnanimous spirit. Pray tell how she was intolerant and what she said to defy you? Lu Xiao declared righteously. I wished to take Wanro as an equal wife, and she threatened suicide, speaking utterly inappropriately. Ah yes, I remembered. Lin Wanro, the White Lotus-eyed character from the novel, Lu Xiao's true love and mistress. This incident marked the beginning of his systematic torture of the female lead. I nearly laughed from anger. You want to take an equal wife, my daughter objects, and that makes her jealous and defiant, deserving a beating? The husband guides the wife. Stuff that bullshit. I cut him off, nearly spitting in his face. The husband guides the wife means you can beat your spouse at will? Show me which law states that. I stepped closer, backing him up. Lu Xiao, let me make this clear. Qingyuan is a daughter married out from Jing'an Marquis Manor, not livestock you purchased. My daughter isn't dead yet, and you're already eager to parade on to slap her face. And her An equal wife, no less. Her objection is perfectly reasonable. Lu Xiao's forehead veins bulged from my scolding. Mother-in-law, this is general manor business. You beat my daughter from Marquis Manor on my property and call it your business? Where do you get the nerve? I pointed at his nose, my finger nearly touching his bridge. From this moment, Qingyuan stays at the Marquis Manor to recover. When she's healed, we'll discuss whether she returns. As for your precious one, Ru, as long as I draw breath, she'll never cross the general manor threshold, not as an equal wife, not even as a concubine. Lu Shao had never been dressed down like this, his face turning iron gray. Li Guixiang! In his fury, he used the original's name. Don't think being my mother-in-law protects you from consequences. Come on then, try touching me. I went all in. I'd love to lie down and let the cavalry general make his name. See whether your fists are harder or the censor's pens sharper, whether the border troops will follow a commander who beats his own mother-in-law. Devastating blow to his pride and position. Lu Xiao's standing at court relied not only on military merit, but reputation and his troops' loyalty. A scandal about driving his mother-in-law to death would destroy him. He stared daggers at me for a long moment. Excellent. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the whole room shook. Su Qingyuan on the couch flinched, and I turned to stroke her head. Don't worry, just a beast making noise. Next, I replaced the manor's slacking servants with a fresh batch who seemed more honest, then focused entirely on caring for Su Qingyuan. I had the kitchen prepare various blood-nourishing medicinal meals, personally supervising her consumption, applied wound salve 3 times daily without fail, and was absolutely meticulous. In my spare time, instead of lecturing her with grand principles, I told her stories from my countryside days, how I wrestled with 300-pound wild boars, single-handedly subdued raging bulls, and fought town throws until they cried for their mothers. Su Qingyuan progressed from initial shock to rapt attention, her eyes gradually gaining light. Mother, you were truly formidable, she said softly with admiration. What's so special about that? I patted her shoulder, still too thin. Women need to be tough to avoid being bullied, act weak, and everyone wants a piece. She looked thoughtful. During this period, Lu Xiao never visited, but according to my informants, the general manor wasn't quiet. Lin Wanro spent her days weeping and whispering sweet manipulations in Lu Xiao's ear. Lu Xiao threw a few obstacles at the Marquis Manor in court, but unfortunately, the original son was such a mediocrity with no real power that it barely stung. Rumors began circulating outside about the Marquis Manor Dowager lady being a crude countrywoman who interfered in her daughter's marital affairs, Su Qingyuan being a jealous shrew who angered her husband, and me bullying the general based on seniority. Seemed Lu Xiao was shifting to political warfare. Ha! He wanted to play the public opinion game with me? I donned my full court lady regalia and requested an imperial audience. The current emperor was reasonably benevolent and showed favor to loyal ministers' families. Upon seeing the Empress Dowager, I dropped to my knees with tears in my eyes, dramatically recounting how Lu Xiao favored his concubine while destroying his wife, nearly beating his legitimate spouse to death with a riding whip, and how I risked my life to save my daughter. Naturally, I emphasized Lu Xiao's brutality and my daughter's pitiable state, while omitting my glorious moments of throwing teacups and calling him a beast. Your Imperial Majesty, this old woman's life is bitter. Just this one daughter. Initially delighted she'd married a good man who knew it would come to this. Had I not happened upon that scene, my poor daughter might have been beaten to death. I beseech your Imperial Majesty and the Empress Dowager to deliver justice for this old woman and Qingyuan Marquis Manor. The Empress Dowager was Buddhist with a soft heart, most intolerant of such abuse of legitimate wives. Her expression darkened. Outrageous! How dare General Lu show such disrespect, treating his wife so harshly? She immediately ordered palace ladies to fetch fine supplements and medicines as gifts for Su Qingyuan, warmly comforted me, and indicated she would discipline Lu Xiao. With the Empress Dowager's stance clear, outside rumors immediately shifted to criticizing Lu Xiao for poor household management, excessive concubine favoritism, and harsh treatment of his legitimate wife. Lu Xiao ate this setback, wearing black expressions at court for days. Su Qingyuan's injuries gradually healed and her spirits brightened, though traces of melancholy lingered in her brow. She'd gaze out windows sometimes, lost in thought. She still harbored illusions about Lu Xiao. After all, he was the husband she'd admired since youth, and the official male lead of this novel. Such feelings don't fade easily. Today, I was strolling the gardens with her, helping her exercise and stretch, when the steward hurried over with urgent news. Dowager Lady, the General Manor has sent people, Deputy General Zhao with Miss Lin, claiming they've come to pay respects and escort the young mistress home. Oh, here they come. I narrowed my eyes. Su Qingyuan instinctively gripped my arm. What's to fear? I patted her hand. Come, let mother show you what performance they're putting on. Arriving at the front hall, I saw Lu Xiao's Deputy General Zhao, and beside him a white-clothed, willow-waisted beauty with reddened eyes, Lin Wanro herself. Seeing us, Deputy Zhao cupped his fist respectfully. His attitude was proper enough. This subordinate greets the Dowager Lady and Madam. The General commands me to escort Madam home. Lin Wanro stepped forward, about to kneel to Su Qing. Oin. Elder sister, everything is Wanneru's fault for making sister angry. Please forgive me, sister. Please return to the manor with the general. What a perfectly pitiful white lotus. Su Qingyuan watched her silently, gripping my hand tighter. I spoke first, preventing her from completing the bow. Please don't. My daughter can't accept such grand courtesy. Her health isn't fully recovered, and if your bow startles her, she'll be bedridden another half-month. Lin Wanro's expression stiffened as she looked at me pitifully. Dowager Lady, Wanro sincerely comes to apologize to elder sister. Opening your mouth constitutes an apology. I looked her up and down. My daughter bears real whip wounds. I turned to Deputy Zhao. Where's Lu Xiao? Why isn't he here himself? Sending a deputy with some nobody. What is this? Dismissing beggars? Deputy Zhao looked uncomfortable. The general is occupied with military duties. Occupied my foot, busy with Miss Lin more like. I couldn't be bothered with their nonsense and addressed Su Qingyuan directly. Yuaner, see clearly. This woman is your husband's precious treasure. For her sake, he'd take a whip to you. Now, they casually say, come home. Do you want to return for more beatings or to watch them canoodle? Su Qingyuan looked at Lin Wanro's performance, then at Deputy Zhao's shifty eyes, her own slowly reddening as the last traces of hesitation and fantasy faded from her gaze. Lin Wanro quickly interjected, Sister, you misunderstand. Wanro wouldn't dare compete with you. I only seek to serve tea and water at the general's side, content as a mere servant. Shut up! I barked coldly. There's no place for your voice here. Some nameless, questionable woman dares call my daughter sister? Who taught you such manners? I pointed at Lin Wanro while addressing Deputy Zhao. Take her and get out of my manor. If you want to fetch my daughter, have Lu Xiao come with an 8-bearer palanquin to publicly apologize to my daughter before all the capital, or forget it. Deputy Zhao's face darkened. Dowager Lady, surely you're being unreasonable. I am being unreasonable, so what? I stepped forward, releasing my full pig slaughterer's aura. If you're unhappy, tell Lu Xiao to come find me himself. Deputy Zhao and the sniffling Lin Wanro slunk away in defeat. After they left, Su Qingyuan finally couldn't hold back, burying her face in my shoulder and weeping softly. Mother, his heart is truly cruel. I held her, gently patting her back. Cry it out. Tears for such a beast aren't worth it. Lu Xiao never came to apologize. Such a supremacist couldn't possibly swallow his pride that far. Not only did he refuse, he immediately started playing dirty tricks, cutting off several behind the scenes favors to Qingyuan marquis manor. Originally, the manor's newly acquired farms and shops had shallow foundations, barely managing to establish themselves by relying on the cavalry general manor's reputation and connections. My newly inherited son came running to my hall with a mournful expression, practically in tears. Mother, my dear mother, please just say less and humble yourself. That's General Lu, commanding 100,000 elite troops. What can our family use to fight him? Seeing my unmoved expression, he beat his chest in frustration. She's just a concubine born sister. Why must you offend the general to death for her sake? Father and elder brother have only been gone a few years. Our marquis title isn't even secure yet. How will we survive? Watching this spineless coward, my anger flared again. The old marquis, my deceased husband, and his outstanding but short lived elder son had risked their lives on battlefields to earn these decades of wealth and status, only to leave behind this specimen. I slammed my teacup on the table. Without Lu Xiao, Jean Anne Marquis Manor falls apart? Your father and brother exchanged their lives for this title so you could lie around eating inherited wealth and kowtowing to others? He shrank back at my intensity, mumbling, but those promising businesses lost the general manor's connections. The managers and suppliers might turn hostile. Let them turn hostile, I cut him off. Do living people die from holding their piss? We'll find new connections when business dries up. The manor's foundation remains. Starting tomorrow, get yourself to those suburban estates and see for yourself. Learn how fields are farmed and shops are run instead of loafing in the city with your worthless friends, understanding nothing. I kicked out this useless son and sat alone reviewing the original owner's memories. The old marquis rose from humble origins through military merit, fighting alongside the previous emperor, earning his title only a decade ago. The original had been a renowned pig slaughterer in 10 surrounding villages before following her successful husband and son to the capital to become this Marquis Manor's lady. Essentially still a countrywoman with little sophistication, she understood nothing about managing property, leaving household affairs to drift. Fortunately, I wasn't the original. I had her memories, plus modern market vendor Li Daji's shrewdness, and decades of dealing with all types earned through pig slaughtering. I began sweeping reforms, summoning several problematic managers to confront them with account books. Without beating around the bush with scholarly rhetoric, I used my interrogation style from questioning pork vendors. Within rounds, they were sweating profusely, and I investigated what needed investigating, replaced what needed replacing. I also personally met with several seemingly honest veterans still loyal to the old Marcus, discussing how to use the manor's farms and shops for stable new enterprises. Without Lu Xiao's backing, many connections were indeed severed, but the capital was vast. There were always other channels. Before we'd grown soft relying on the general manor, now we needed to rebuild our backbone. Su Qingyuan volunteered to learn practical skills, refusing to remain a soft target for manipulation. I was delighted. I was overhauling the manor's holdings and desperately needed trustworthy people. I brought her to examine account books, teaching her estate and shop management, dealing with stewards, identifying genuine workers versus slackers. She learned earnestly and progressed rapidly, the timidity in her eyes fading daily. Watching her transform filled me with satisfaction. Screw the abused novel heroine. My daughter would live well. Days flew by as Su Qingyuan gained weight and color, her bearing growing confident. She was becoming entirely different. Lu Xiao remained silent, plotting who knows what. One day, while we were examining a shipment of new silk materials, the steward stumbled in, pale as death. Dowager lady, young mistress, Terrible news. An 800 Li emergency report from the frontier. General Lu went deep into enemy territory, fell into an ambush, was severely wounded, and is missing. Su Qingyuan's account book clattered to the floor as she stood frozen, all color draining from her face. My heart sank, as expected. Seeing Su Qingyuan's devastated expression, I walked over, picked up the account book, and pressed it back into her hands. What's the panic? Life and death are fate, wealth and status heaven's will. What does Lu Xiao's survival have to do with you? Over the following days, the general manor descended into chaos with Lin Wanro weeping daily about petitioning the emperor to send rescue missions, while I posted people to watch Su Qingyuan closely, preventing any possibility of her rushing to the battlefield. The court also debated whether and how to mount rescue operations. Fortunately, Su Qingyuan seemed genuinely past her feelings for Lu Xiao, continuing her duties normally with only occasional distraction. A few days later, another war report arrived. Lu Xiao had been found and rescued by loyal soldiers at great cost, but his injuries were severe. One leg was finished, standing again would be questionable, and his face was ruined. The renowned cavalry general had become a cripple overnight. I'd expected this. Without Su Qingyuan to drain, Lu Xiao would hemorrhage badly this time. The emperor expressed deep regret and generous compensation, but a disabled general would inevitably fade from power centers. The general manor's once busy entrance grew visibly desolate. Deep autumn brought falling leaves throughout the courtyard. I had servants set up a rocking chair in the corridor, covered myself with a thin blanket, and watched Su Qingyuan direct the careful distribution of winter coal to each room. She now managed the manor expertly, with the servants' complete respect. Even her useless brother showed her considerable deference. Mother, each room has received coal allocation. This year's harvest was good. I thought to buy more heavy cotton fabric and outfit each servant with winter clothing. What do you think? She approached softly. I nodded with satisfaction. Handle it as you see fit. Just then, the gatekeeper reported, Dowager lady, young mistress, people from General Manor have come. They've carried General Lu here, saying he wishes to see the young mistress. Su Qingyuan started slightly while I threw off my blanket and sat up. Show them in. Time for final closure. Several Lu family soldiers entered carrying a wheelchair. Seated within was a figure covered in thick blankets, one leg space conspicuously empty, wearing a silver half mask over his face, while his exposed chin and lips bore hideous scars. This was Lu Xiao, once the spirited cavalry general, now emaciated with dull eyes, radiating only defeat and death. Seeing Su Qingyuan, his eyes flashed briefly as he croaked, Qingyuan? Su Qingyuan gazed at him quietly, expression neutral, as if viewing a stranger. His eyes gradually dimmed. Without speaking, I waited as he closed his eyes and slowly uttered, I consent to divorce. These words seemed to drain his remaining essence, leaving him slumped in the wheelchair. The courtyard fell silent. Su Qingyuan drew a deep breath, stepped forward, and produced a letter from her sleeve, placing it on his lap blanket. General, I've prepared the divorce papers. Please review them. If acceptable, press your fingerprint. Lu Xiao looked at the pre-written divorce document, his body trembling as he coughed violently, blood seeping from his mouth corners. He smiled bitterly, shakily dipped his finger in the blood, and pressed firmly onto the papers. The bright red fingerprint was shockingly vivid. Henceforth, each would go their separate ways. Su Qingyuan retrieved the divorce papers, turned, and walked back to support my arm. Mother, it's windy outside. Shall we go in? Throughout, she never glanced again at that broken man. I let her help me as we headed inside. By year's end, perhaps feeling somewhat indebted to Jing'an Marquis Manor, and noting Su Qingyuan's successful business management and growing reputation, the emperor specifically issued an edict praising her as virtuous and capable in household management, bestowing an honorary court lady title. Though merely ceremonial, it represented the imperial family's attitude. Jing'an Marquis Manor was finally firmly established. Come spring, I purchased a small estate with hot springs outside the capital. During warm weather, I'd take Su Qingyuan there for several days, soaking in springs and sampling fresh fruits from the grounds. She smiled increasingly often. One evening after bathing in hot springs, we sat in the estate courtyard drinking tea and stargazing. Su Qingyuan suddenly spoke. Mother, the steward says wild boars from the back mountain forest keep coming down to damage crops. Should we hire hunters? I set down my teacup, eyes brightening. What hunters? Standing to flex my wrists and ankles. This old lady hasn't exercised properly in ages. Come, daughter, let's head up the mountain tonight for some extra dining. Under moonlight, I led Su Qingyuan toward the back mountain, our figures disappearing into the forest depths, startling several night birds. My daughter is the very best.